So, Mike, one of the things I noticed coming in here is that we're in a development with a lot of new construction going on, multiple homes being built around us all at the same time, beautiful coordination there. We walked in here and it's almost dead silent. And you only have the temporary doors on the outside of the building. They look, I mean, I can see a lot of daylight on those. Those are not super airtight or insulated themselves. It seems like you got a lot of high performance insulation details. Maybe we can talk a little bit about those and some of the ones that we can see right close to us.
Absolutely. When you think about some of the current state of construction, like you said, we have these temporary doors installed and we don't have any drywall up. So that means that we're just open to the framing upstairs when we get up there. And yet it's still really quiet in here. One of the main reasons for that is we use these blown in blanket wall insulation systems where we dense pack and blow in insulation into the wall cavities. So that's supposed to be really energy efficient. That's why we're doing it, really. It installs very well. It gets around all the different wires and ducts and or different things that are running in the wall and pipes and all that. Um, and it gives this really, really dense, warming insulation, but it's also going to make the home really quiet. So what's not the primary purpose is an end result that is pretty enjoyable for a homeowner, knowing that their home is just going to be really quiet to the outdoors.
That's great. And so I can see the bib system in the walls, and then we can move up the walls, and it looks like you have some polyisocyanurate. Is that correct? Some insulation board above the window. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you chose to do that?
Absolutely, Stefan. So, we have structural headers. There are these large beams that go above windows because of the loading that comes down on those. And wood's just not a very good insulator. So while we need that for structure, we have the amount of wood that's required or the thickness of that header still leaves some room where we can put some insulation there. Now, if we just tried to put a little bit of this blown-in blanket or a fiberglass bat there, the density of that insulation and the insulating value of that is just pretty low in such a small area. So we take this really high density and kind of super insulating foam board, and we put it in the little space that the header leaves to come out to the framing. And so what that gives us is an R value of about R9 or so, depending on the amount of room that we have there. And the difference between that and just having the wood there is pretty substantial because you've essentially just doubled your insulation value up there.
Yeah. So as I was growing up in the construction industry, one of the jobs I had was going around and stuffing fiberglass next to the windows, right? Tell me why I see what you're taking a different strategy there. Maybe talk about why you're doing that.
By using this foam, it's a low expansion foam, so it's not going to cause the windows to buckle or have operational issues. But we're able to quickly and efficiently go around the edges of these windows and insulate them and air seal them. So that's going to, again, make for a more comfortable home and a more efficient home. In addition to that, what we can kind of see at the bottom of the window is what we call a sill pan. And that's where we have this self-adhesive membrane or flashing system that kind of comes up about 6 inches on the side, runs along the bottom of the window, and comes back up the other side. The inside of that is caulked to create a back dam on it. And you can't really tell here, but the bottom piece of wood below the window there, the sill is actually sloped away from the home. And that means that if any water kind of finds its way along the outside, the edge of that window, it's not going to be able to come in at the bottom, and it's going to be directed and it's going to drain away from the house. So that's another kind of exciting little detail that we can see inside the house while we're looking at this.
That's great. So it's open on the other side and all sealed up from this side. So any water that gets there can just drain right out. Love it. And yeah, my fiberglass technique probably wasn't very good at air sealing either. So, all right. So one of the things I also noticed when we walked right in here and look up is all this ductwork up in the ceiling. And so, Mike, let's just talk to everyone a little bit about that.
Yeah, so what we do with all of our homes is we put the ductwork inside the conditioned space of the home. A lot of typical construction, you would see all these ducts. They'd be wrapped in thin insulation, and they'd be running in the crawl space or in the attic. And those aren't very comfortable or exciting places to be. So if we think about that is, if I don't want to be in the crawl space or in the attic, do I really want my ductwork to be there, as that delivers the air to my home and moves the air through my home? We're going to go ahead and say that that's not the best plan, and that we want to have the ductwork inside the home. It's going to be more efficient to run it this way because you're not running through a cold crawl space or a hot or cold attic. And it's going to be healthier because you're not running through those spaces where the air quality might not be very good. So we keep all of this in the conditioned space, and we use these open web floor trusses. They're basically 2x4s with triangular openings between them that allow us to easily get the ductwork and all the plumbing and other wires through. We also, even though this is inside, we seal all the edges, so you can see this kind of gray goopy stuff that's mastic, and that seals the ductwork because we want to make sure, even though it's okay if a little air moves out to the rest of the house because it's inside and we're not losing it outside, or we're not pulling something in through it from outside, we really want to send the air where it's supposed to go. Each one of our homes, we go through and we use this software to size the system and size each run to every room specifically for the home. So this isn't something where it's like this plan gets it done that way every time. They take into account the orientation, the way the house is facing and the kind of sun exposure that it's going to be getting and all the exact details of the home. And then they size the system. And we actually test to make sure that we're getting the airflow that we said we needed within a reasonably acceptable range to every location.
So you're commissioning all of your ductwork against what you modeled from an energy standpoint. So you're saying, okay, for energy model is telling me we need this much heating and cooling energy, and so we need this much ductwork to make that happen. And what I'm hearing is you're both doing that part, super important, and I'm also hearing that you're verifying it. And so is Earth Advantage helping with that verification process? And what does that look like?
So that's absolutely correct. And our heating and cooling contractor comes in and they test and measure the airflows both during rough and finish. And Earth Advantage, as our third-party verification program and partner, they come in at two different stages. They're going to come into the house right about now when they can see all the insulation, all the ductwork in the house before drywall. And they're going to come look at things and check for anything that doesn't meet the standards of the program. Now, our hope and our expectation is that we've done such a good job managing the house up to that point that they don't have anything to point out to us. But as we know, nobody's perfect. Nothing's ever quite perfect. So having that second set of eyes is really valuable to us as a home builder. We know that they're going to come through and they're going to be helping us improve the quality of our home. It's a partnership. It's not like they've got the red pen and they're marking up the paper and making you feel bad. They're helping us improve. So they come through at this stage, then they come back again at the end of construction and they test and measure things in the finished home. So those two inspections are key times where they're able to see the stuff before it's finished and they're able to come and verify everything after it.
So let's talk about that. So seeing stuff before it's finished. Like you're a big critical part to this whole enchilada here that you're putting together, which is this very efficient, healthy, durable home, is the air tightness of this building, correct? And I noticed that this particular building's energy performance score shows it's about 40% more efficient than a new home to code, built to essentially 2020 energy efficiency requirements. This home almost saves half of that amount of energy. And so I imagine you're doing a lot of air sealing details and that's critical. And so you said there's a verification right now. Can we talk a little bit about that and why it's important to do now?
So, so many of the details that are critical to the end performance of a home are things that could be skipped and buried and never addressed. So when we talk about the insulation value or the quality of the ductwork that's installed or the air sealing that we've looked at along the edges of the house and the windows, once the drywall's up, you never know if that was done properly. So having that inspection beforehand is going to help identify any issues and provide peace of mind for us and for our customers, knowing that another party, another program has come and looked at this. If there are any spots where, say for an air sealing example, where there's a spot that the insulator missed, or maybe they were using a can of foam and it ran out, and they went to get another one, and they missed picking up right at the right spot again. It's just another time where we can catch any of those details.
And right now it looks like I can see everything. And if I can see everything, fixing it seems pretty straightforward. And I've fixed a lot of drywall in my life, and I don't like that at all. And I would imagine that's pretty expensive if you finish this home and you're not meeting your insulation and airtightness requirements that you're selling to your client. That this is a huge opportunity right now to get that right inexpensively before you figure it out when it's maybe too late.
Yeah. So anytime you have the opportunity to do something right the first time, or to catch it before it's moved on to the next stage, it's going to be more efficient. It's going to save money, and it's going to just save a lot of time for everybody. Like you said, if you're kind of having to come in and try and fix something after the fact or chase something after it's covered, it's a really difficult situation to find yourself in. So, in order to build a highly efficient and zero energy ready home, all of these details really matter. Having the ductwork inside is one of the main steps to that. Having proper air sealing is one of the main steps to that. And honestly, between those two key pieces, I think that's what's going to be a challenge for a lot of builders. It really isn't that hard to get a very well-sealed home. We're not using a bunch of crazy technology or fancy thought processes here. It's just an attention to detail and some very readily available products. But we're able to consistently deliver a home that is far, far more comfortable and more efficient than what the average new home is, as you've mentioned. A lot of times people think, I'm going to buy a new house. It's going to be well built and efficient. The reality is, if we're staying in a home right now that's about 40% more efficient than another brand new home, there are different levels that you can find. And then when you start looking at existing homes, if a new home is 40% better, think about where an existing home
We're at least
lies.
twice as efficient as an existing home, according to that energy performance score. And a home like this built new, we're probably somewhere in the realm of $250 or so a month worth of energy bills. And the ability to offset that maybe hasn't been built in at all, right? So there's probably not solar ready, and there's not going to be solar on the roof that could offset a majority, if not all of those costs. And this home's probably, if we take that, 40% of that would be probably $100 a month. And what are you finding? When you get those energy performance scores, are you meeting those targets? Do you find that your feedback is that homeowners' bills are that low? Is that an expectation maybe that's happening with your clientele, that they see those numbers, and what's the feedback on that?
So the energy performance score system that's in place is definitely accurate. It makes some assumptions, and it's going to be based on these modeled homeowners. And not every family is the same. Not everybody's habits are going to be the same. But your typical family, and this is what's important, your typical family is going to see an energy performance end result and cost that's very similar to what's modeled. We've seen those be highly accurate so far. I think that a lot of people, I know for myself, when I've looked at them, I've used less energy than the model said. So I think there's a little bit of room in there for a lot of families to come in under.
The bottom line is that you're starting already, right? If your typical home is using that much more electricity, and this home is using that much less, then whether you're driving, however you drive fast, you drive slow. If you're driving the Prius, you're going to use less gas than if you're driving the Suburban, right? It's just how it is. Yeah. And so I think that's really telling when you look at that miles per gallon, or in this case, energy performance score. It really translates to real savings for homeowners. And I think that's just something that we haven't had until just recently. And I really think it's going to be huge for the future.
Yeah, I agree. Having that measured value is critical.
Okay, Mike. So we talked about the insulation in the walls and the cool thing about the insulated headers. Now we've got these windows. And so my understanding is that you've got a really well insulated wall, but then you have a not very well insulated window. That can really drive down the overall performance and maybe comfort in a home. So what do you do here to, rise up to that challenge?
Windows are definitely an area that can be inefficient. The window is never going to perform quite like the wall, right? But we do like natural light, and we like natural ventilation when the weather's appropriate for that. So windows are a good thing. But what we have here is what looks like a just pretty normal vinyl window. It's a Milgard window, locally manufactured here in the Northwest. And even though it looks pretty normal, it has a number of different features that make it highly efficient. So this is still just a double pane window. We just have 2 panes of glass here. But they have some coatings and some different kind of gases that are filled in between and some seals and whatnot. Some of that stuff, the kind of low E thoughts and some of the like argon and different things that they put in windows, those aren't really feeling that new to people anymore. So they're way better than an old window, but they've been around for a while. Kind of a newer method here. Milgard refers to this as a fourth surface coating. So what they do is they put an additional coating on the inside of the glass here facing into the house. And what that does is it essentially reflects the heat back into the home. So we're in a heating dominated climate. We get some nice summer days, but most of the year we're going to be in a heating season. So that's really beneficial to us. On a cold day, you can actually walk up to this window and you can feel, if you hold your hand just a little bit off the glass, you can feel the heat that's coming from your hand kind of radiating back at you because of this fourth surface.
Outstanding. That's fantastic. And so for some of the builders or other people listening to this right now, there's 4 surfaces, right? Because you've got those 2 panes of glass. And so you've got that outside pane, surface 1, inside of that outside pane, 2, inside of the inner pane, 3, and then this. Now we've got a 4th surface. And what I'm hearing is we're putting these like thin kind of metallic coatings that are both reflecting out some of the UV that the unwanted heat gain might have that surface on the outside. But then also we've got stuff all the way on the inside now that can reflect that heat that we provide, that we're kind of like our own sun inside, right? Sending out heat and electromagnetic waves. And we can send those to the windows, and now the windows can send that back to us. All right?
Another great explanation, Stefan. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And kind of just a fun fact is, we talk about infrared cameras sometimes, and to see this in just full motion, if you're standing in here on a cold day and you pull out that infrared camera, you can just see the heat from your body coming right back off the window, right at you on that infrared camera. It really does work. It's not just a gimmick.
So great. Cool. So now we're upstairs looking at some high performance insulation and air sealing details. And so I can see a variety of things. And maybe it would be great, Mike, if you could just kind of walk us through some of the stuff that you think I might be seeing right now.
So we have a number of things that we get to look at right now. We've talked a little bit, or we can continue talking about this foam sill seal. It's this little pink foam gasket, and it's something that we've used in construction for years between the concrete and the bottom plate, the green plate there. It's serving a different purpose here than it is there. So what this is doing is when we put the drywall on the framing here, and we have a space up against the attic, that's creating a gasket. So the drywall presses against that, and it air seals up against there. And that prevents a lot of the air from passing between the walls and the attic. Most of the air loss from the house actually we have a stack effect in a house, so air kind of comes up and out. And by sealing up these top points, we're creating a much more efficient house, because that's a great spot for leakage that we don't want to have. So this very simple product, very inexpensive. Somebody can come out here and roll this along. They use a stapler and staple it up there. Everywhere that the house is meeting an attic space, it's a very cost-effective but very effective air sealing measure for just a couple $100s.
I guess what I'm hearing right now from you is that that's a really cost-effective one.
Well, yeah, one of the most cost-effective air sealing options we have is that simple foam gasket. We spend some time, and not a great deal of cost, but some time with also some different foam locations at the penetrations, like where that pipe comes
So
through.
tell me a little bit about, we're in the middle of the home now. This is not an exterior wall. We're actually in a bathroom where a master cabinet probably is going to be at some point. And so why would you air seal this interior wall?
The amazing thing is that a lot of air ends up finding its way into wall cavities, and because this is next to the attic space, that's going to be a spot where the air is going to be able to move between the two spaces. So even though we're inside, we're still connected to outside, and sealing up every point you can really just comes together for a much tighter home.
Great. And I'm also noticing, as we look around, that we've got some maybe high performance attic details. Can we talk a little bit about that?
So our attic trusses are intentionally planned to allow for insulation. We put extra insulation in our attic compared to kind of older homes or typical homes. And in order to have that space, out in the middle of the house here, there's lots of room. But as we get toward the edge, the way roof framing works, you get closer and closer to the edge and you're running out of space. So what we have is we have a raised heel. So instead of getting pinched down in the corner, we take the end of the truss and we make it taller, and we leave extra space for insulation all the way out to the outside wall. So if you were to look at a typical house and you get that kind of pinched off space, you're getting almost no insulation in the corner. And especially if you have a hip roof location, like we have in the corner of our house over here, where these two planes are coming together and they're both pinching off the corner, there's a lot of lost insulation space there. So by putting this raised heel up, we're able to get a lot of insulation out to the edge. We use an 11¼ inch raised heel. There are different sizes that you can have done. That 11¼ is going to get us somewhere around an R28 edge. Kind of depends on the value of the insulation. But it's going to get us about that all the way out to the edge, compared to little to nothing out there.
That's outstanding.